Welcome back to The Keys, formerly known as the Transaction Care Podcast. My name is Lillian Hernandez, also known as Lilly, and I'm your host. As you see, we have a lovely guest today. She is probably a familiar face or maybe a familiar voice to you. She was episode 28 of the Transaction Care Podcast. So if you haven't already done so, go re-listen to that and then come back and listen to this one. But today we have on Danielle Butler, and she's going to give a brief intro as to who she is, how you can reach her, what she does, and then we'll jump straight into today's conversation. So go ahead and take it away, Danielle.
Yes, it's Danielle Butler at the best TC ever on Instagram. And I am a transaction coordinator and I own a transaction coordinator business. I am also a realtor. I serve the Bronx and Westchester and back in Virginia again. We'll talk about that. I have an ebook and I'm working on a course for transaction coordinators because I've been told I should. Um,
Hmm.
so that's coming. And then that's it. Just go follow.
Awesome. So definitely give Danielle a follow. So, it's always amazing to connect with different people in the industry, like-minded people in this industry, but it's even more amazing to make deeper connections and have, what you would consider even a friend in the industry. And I consider Danielle a friend in the industry. And maybe one day we'll actually meet in person and I'll make it out to the East Coast. But she was the first person I thought of when I wanted to bring the show back in terms of rebranding, bringing interviews back. And it's always nice to have that kind of soft landing when you're getting back in the swing of things and you're feeling a little rusty and you can just open the dialogue to anything and that person will be there to just rock with you on this journey. So, and if you've been following us on Instagram, we had a live show behind the transaction, which we were doing on a weekly basis. So those are still on both of our platforms if you want to go back and watch those. There's so many gems, so many keys. Um, and another way to continue to get to know both of us as well. So definitely support Danielle in all that she's doing. So what I want to get into first is pretty much being a TC in this industry in 2024. At the time of this recording, it is September 2024. Entering Q4, but how has it been in this last year in terms of I know, the lawsuits with the commissions have really impacted the entire industry, but how is it impacting you or how is it not impacting you?
So for me, I would say because I am very much, some people like to say I am a referral-based business, even though I've never labeled myself that. So I have been blessed in the sense that the clients I work with refer other clients that are like them, and most of them are resilient, right? So I have not felt the impact of losing clients or a shift in business because of the lawsuits. What I have noticed is that people in general are more on edge. And
Mhm.
so I have lost some clients based on there being people issues more so than commission issues. And
Mm.
so that in itself is kind of like what's been happening. But I will say, because I am a realtor, I do understand that the um it is possible that people could have been affected, transaction coordinators could have been affected by these lawsuits. But I'm a pivoter. So I always pivot, right? So it comes natural to me. For those that it doesn't come natural to, I would say you pivot towards, looking for listing agents. I think sometimes as transaction coordinators, we just want the transaction. You just want that contract, right? But you have to be selective in knowing your clientele and then when you need to adjust your clientele. So I've changed my business model. I think the last time I changed my business model was when interest rates shot up.
Mm.
Okay, so I went from offering like ISA support and TC support kind of in a bundle package to saying, okay, now only my top producing agents that do this level of business can stay on a retainer, and everyone else has to go to per contract. And I'm getting rid of these ISA services because it's costing me more money, and a lot of the ISA people I had hired weren't as efficient as me. So that
Can you just
example,
define ISA for those that don't know really quick?
yes, inside sales assistant.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm. And so I think pivoting is something that most business owners, most entrepreneurs have to master, right? And so with these, if you are being affected by the lawsuit, you are now looking for agents who are thriving with listings. You know, you may not have many buyer agents now. You may not be going to open houses to recruit. You may be saying, okay, now I'm looking at who is
Right.
the listing agent and I'm email marketing more listing agents from Zillow, you know, or whatever. So pivoting, I think, is the best way to handle that, but you have to be aware of the trends in order to do that. And so it's not just, looking at your production, but it's looking at the demographics of the agents that are on your roster and, how they're performing. Are they buyer heavy? Are they seller heavy? Are they a good mix, or if you have a lot of clients who maybe they're not as busy, would they benefit from ISA support, right? So I think it's not always about finding new clients. It's kind of like working with the clientele that you have and remaining beneficial to them. So pivoting your business to remain beneficial.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's great. Thank you for sharing all those tips because definitely on this side of things, on the West Coast and San Francisco and the Bay Area, um, and I don't, let me know if your brokerages have had to sit you guys down, have meetings, or if you all have just kind of been having to figure it out on your own. But I've noticed definitely an uptick and an influx in listings for sure. And a lot of the transactions that I have right now are listings. And even leading up to this, the lawsuits, the new laws and all the different disclosures, um, I was doing a lot of listings, as a TC. Just for those that aren't familiar with the work that I do, I am a full-time transaction coordinator outside of hosting this podcast as well. And I also coach one-on-one. But I did notice an uptick in listings and realizing like, oh, I think this is the reality of where we're at today in the market, So I have to be, like you said, you have to pivot, you have to be resilient. Otherwise, you're just going to be left behind. And the other element to that is patience. Because if you know anything about listings, they can sit on the market for up to 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, depending on what the contract says, the listing agreement says. So you may not even close a deal for a whole year or a whole quarter or season. So you have to get creative in ways that you market yourself and what are some tips you can offer the audience in terms of marketing that you've either had to pivot and change that you touched on it a little bit, but what other elements have you added or subtracted from your business in this season?
In this season, it's really more so, getting rid of the ISA services. And I did do like small marketing pieces and stuff like that, but I've kind of like scaled that back too and removed it because we are good at the TC side of things, right? And marketing is not necessarily of importance to me. It was something I actually just added because I was like, oh, I see other people are adding, social media graphics. They're doing it like complimentary. But if the people aren't using your complimentary marketing, then why are you spending time creating it, right?
Right.
So, that's a piece that I took away. And when I renewed the contracts with my monthly retainer contracts, I'm like, hey, this is no longer being, or you weren't using it. So we're not offering it.
Mhm.
And so that's one service. And everything else has pretty much been consistent. And so overall though, I think what I am working on now is hold on 1 second because they're cutting the grass.
I can't hear it, so you're okay.
Oh, you can't hear good. Okay. So what I have been focusing on is adding other streams of income under my business. And
Okay.
so I'm looking at products. I'm looking at, that type of thing versus more so of just TC services because now I'm realizing that yes, TC services are good, monthly retainer are good, but it's good to have an additional stream of income that's more passive. Like I don't have to be as involved in it. And so that's why I've kind of been focusing on building the course. And people will say, like, oh, you're working on the course? Oh, you're still selling your ebook? Like that market is oversaturated, but our niche is not as saturated is I guess is the best way to put it. Like there's not like a whole ton of us just doing it like it's a select few. So
Mhm.
there's still more people that we can pull into our niche and educate about our niche that it could work for. And so you can't hear that.
I hear it now, just
Yeah.
slightly. It's not
I'm
too.
just like, okay. So, those are the things that I'm focusing on. One, products, passive income, um, right now in 2024.
Awesome, awesome. So I love that because I always hear the saying like one is too close to none. You know,
Mhm.
especially when you're self-employed. I think sometimes we think like, oh, I'm self-employed, I'm a TC, that's good enough. And then we realize when there's a spike in interest rates or a drop that everything can change overnight. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And that's the scary part. So we do have to in a way, have to be very flexible and open to different ideas. And like you said, when it comes to courses, there are, yeah, I've only come across a handful of courses on the internet. Good ones. No, correct. Because believe it or not, unfortunately, I've had some coaching clients or even just discovery calls where people have taken courses and they come to me like, now what?
Right.
And I'm like, what do you mean now what? They're like, well, I took the course, now what do I do? And I was like, the course didn't tell you what to do?
Right.
You
Exactly.
know, so for anyone listening, both Danielle and I are coaches, so this isn't for us to like fight over clients. There's plenty of fish for all of us in the
Yeah.
sea.
Yeah.
Um, but I want you to know that if you are planning on taking a course, be it Danielle's or you're coming to me and my Patreon community to learn how to do this, make sure that you know your next at least 10 steps after you have left that course, and reach out to the instructors before you hit that purchase button. And if they're not available to help you in the moment, which is, customer service, that should be an indicator that you're not going to get the support that you need after you've completed the course,
Right.
and yeah, you're definitely going to be putting the self-employed. After that, you're still going to have to do that. But if you are relying on someone to teach you or educate you in this world, because a lot of you want to be transaction coordinators, but I think Danielle and I both come from a place where it's like, well, you don't have to be a TC.
Right.
I think we've both had conversations. We actually, on the pre-call, we both realized that it's okay to come to us and realize you don't want to be a TC. And we're
Mhm.
willing to coach you through that, nurture you through that, or at least point you in the right direction. But if and when you are ready to become a TC, you have resources in this industry you see our faces, you hear our voices, that are reliable. And the thing about building a course too is like, I don't know your market. So you can give us the fundamentals, but you can also sprinkle in a little bit of the East Coast. You know what I mean? And that would separate you. And I could do, if I chose to do one, which I don't know if I ever will, but I could sprinkle in San Francisco, the Bay Area, because it's completely different from Los Angeles, Sacramento. You know what I mean? So it's like we all have something to offer. It's just up to you on what you decide to pick. And I know we're kind of veering off a topic a little bit, but when it comes to, and again, we talked about this a little bit in our pre-call, but social media and your presence on social media, you've been open about social media not really being your favorite. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I'm here. I just was trying to make sure because it seemed like it was getting loud on my end, but you
Oh,
said here.
yeah, I only heard like a room at one
Yeah.
point.
Oh my God. He comes I'm just go away. But okay, go ahead. What was it?
It's
I'm
all
sorry.
good. It's all good. My neighbor downstairs runs a dog watching service. So it's dogs barking all day. So I'm surprised they're quiet now. He must be out for a walk or or not give him a tranquilizer. I don't know, because usually they're barking all over. I know them by first name. It's Murphy, it's Mac, it's like I know all these dogs, and I'm not really a pet person. So
Right.
so I'm grateful that I don't hear dogs barking. So little lawn service is all
Oh,
good,
okay. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm just like, sheesh, you just cut the grass. What are y'all doing?
He's got to make his money, and
Gotta make his money. Let me mind my business. Okay.
maybe I'll interview him next.
Yes, maybe that's
It's
who
all
we should
about
have.
home services.
It's just
I'm leaving it in too. So, so
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about, on the topic of marketing, because I did want to get into marketing a little bit in this conversation, which you've touched on. Thank you for sharing what you've been up to and what you're doing. But when it comes to social media, if you've watched our live sessions, if you even listened to Danielle's previous episode, we are both on two different spectrums of social media. I love it, and I don't
I
mind being on it around the clock. If I was making even three figures from it a month, I'd be happy. If I could make six figures, even better. I'll take a four. I'll take a five. Whatever, whatever life and the universe and God wants to provide me financially. But at this point, I'm willing to even do it for zero. But Danielle, you have a team member that helps you with your social media, but you also are the face of your content. But you would prefer not to be, on social media as much, but you still use it as a marketing tool, as a tool to generate leads and just to have that basic brand awareness, right? So moving forward, how are you using social media as a tool in your business? Or how do you envision it, at least as a tool in your business moving forward?
so for one, I think it's funny because a lot of the clients that I have use social media to generate leads, right? And so sometimes it's a way for me to get a message to them without having to tell them directly.
Oh, that's
And so I think that is something that I have come to recognize just from interacting with them, doing business, and then like, oh, getting a response from them on something, and then being like, oh, I didn't even know you was really paying attention because I wasn't really for you, but you recognized it. So updates, things that are going on in my business, changes that are happening, I post there. And then of course around marketing towards the course and serving and letting people know that, I am an expert in this field. I think sometimes people have I'm looking for the right word, but are apprehensive about like calling themselves an expert or
Mm.
um nervous about the fact that like, oh, there's a lot of people saying they're expert on social media. The difference is I really am. Right?
Right.
So I think, I had to get to a place where I was comfortable speaking from that place of, like I do this. This is what I do and I can help you do it too if you want to. And so that's kind of where I am now with social media. It's more so of a place where one, I can kind of touch base with my existing clients and let them know things that's important because they probably didn't open the email I sent them at Monday at 10. And then
Plug,
it,
plug, plug, plug. Monday at
click,
10,
click, click,
email.
right? And then it's also a place where I can let people who are interested in transaction coordinating and didn't know or educate people about the field because it is a good field. It is money to be made. It is empowering. It is a good place to be. I think it's just again you have to decide if it's for you or not. And I think people think that it's easy, but it's not.
Mhm.
And so it requires attention to detail. It requires the ability to guess the next step, be proactive, right? So it's a situation where you have to constantly find ways to try and avoid having to talk to people.
Right.
So they're like, okay, people keep asking me this. I need to create some type of way to
Yes.
answer this question for them so they stop asking me, right? Or, oh, people need to know this. And so it is difficult in the sense that if you're really good at it, you will see that people keep coming at you, to do more and you keep pushing the envelope. And so if you aren't a person who is able to um stand up for yourself and kind of say like, hey, this is the boundary,
Mhm.
then it may not be for you, right? Because if you grow, you're going to have to find ways, you're going to be dealing with confrontation, and so that's kind of what it is. I think in terms of because it's a people business.
Mhm.
So it's like you have to professionally tell people like, hey, you're going too far, or like this is where I'm cut off at, or this is what I don't do. And so it's also a reason why I would prefer not to be the face of the brand is because it's Danielle, 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 even when I have a team member. You know what I'm saying? That you can go to, right? So it's that's why I'm like, okay, find somebody else for it, and why I'm not like a huge advocate or like a big supporter of social media in the business. Like, hey, you can make a living without it. I'm literally just there. So there is an awareness, there is like, hey, these are my products, etc. I mean, you have to be, pretty much. So find a way that works for you in terms of showing up on social media. Even me doing this podcast with Lilly is a part of me saying, okay, I'm putting myself out there in a way that is comfortable for me. It's planned, it's strategic. There's control over, the image, there's control over the branding. So you have to be open to, finding ways to present yourself and be public and market yourself that complements the lifestyle, the business, etc. that you have.
Yeah, no, I mean, you made some excellent points there. I was actually taking notes as you were talking because I didn't want to, I wanted to go into a little bit of detail about three things you brought up. And I agree. As soon as you start to realize some repetitive complaints or repetitive questions, that's how I've built a lot of my templates.
Mhm.
So people come to me like, well, how did you make your templates? I'm like, I messed up. Like,
Right,
I
exactly.
I missed something or they missed something or I noticed I was writing the same email several times, even if it was one sentence or two sentences. And if you use Gmail, they have a lot of like you're starting to see a lot of AI tools being integrated into the platform and a lot of predictive text. So I'm just, especially like a thank you received, it's all it's already in the system. So automation is key to a lot of our efficiency. And I always tell people, the funds are in the follow-up. I
Yes.
lost a lot of my clients early on because I was still in that 9 to 5 mindset of working in an office, seeing people and just telling them I got the email. So I never really built the habit of responding to emails that I got it, working on it, because a lot of people coming in here, like you said, they think it's easy. They think it's a side hustle that they can just fall into. And I've kind of upped my responses and gotten more serious. Like, if you are committed to being a TC and working in the real estate industry, get your real estate license and prove it.
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
kind of stopped skating around the idea of like, yeah, anyone can do it.
Mhm.
Yes and no, but if you are serious about this being your business, get the license. Otherwise, take the courses, do the trainings, and work your way into it as like a VA, an office assistant, office admin, before you really take those leaps, and um, you also mentioned having a team, even if it is one person. For me, I just recently started using Opus Clips, which is an AI tool to clip up my long form content into like 10 different smaller pieces of content. It creates captions, it creates titles, it gives me hashtags that are relevant. It even ranks um the relevancy of the post. Like this is like it scores a 90%. This would do well on the internet. And, in terms of vanity metrics, I've definitely seen an increase in views, in comments. So it's working. If I have to spend an extra $19 a month or $200 a year, whatever it takes, I'm going to do that to alleviate some of the stress so I can focus on the main things that are bringing me income, and then now I can see in the future what I do need in terms of a team or team member or VA, whatever the case may be. And because I still want to support people in terms of working with each other, but it's also okay to embrace technology. And even though you said you don't want to be the face of the brand, you're still posting, you're still
Right.
doing things, and you don't necessarily have to be creating brand new content every single time. Like recycle your posts in order
Yeah.
to market, because not everyone's going to get the message the first time. I've posted the same 20 pieces of content across all my different platforms just at different times. And I plan on reusing them again, probably next quarter. And I just use a scheduler. You just have to find ways to make your life easier. But marketing is key. Being efficient is key, templates. And I'm sure you guys will learn that all in Danielle's course as it becomes a thing. Um, but that's also why I changed the name of the podcast. If you guys have noticed, I called it The Keys in the beginning, because again, you want to make sure you're standing out in a crowd, but also it doesn't always have to be you as the brand. And I wanted to start separating myself as well from the brand. It's like, I just want you guys to have the content, the message. I don't necessarily want you guys to have me per se. Like my personality will stand out on its own, but at the same time, it's like, take that away. Are you still getting the message?
Right.
Are you
Right.
still understanding? A lot of you are saying, I just want to be able to work from home.
Yes. Oh,
You're
sorry.
you're not saying that's
No,
why
I didn't know. I think
that's
that
why I paused. A lot of you are coming to us and saying, I want to be a TC. It's like, let's go deeper.
yes,
Let's get
because
to the root of it all, like
yes,
get to
because
the root.
yes, that is a whole
It's a whole separate conversation.
yeah, it's a whole nother episode.
We're not going to get into that because like I said, me and Danielle can talk. We can talk and talk and talk. Our
Forever,
pre our
right?
pre our pre-show was a podcast in itself.
Right.
So so to kind of wrap up the marketing aspect of this conversation, because this is a conversation. This isn't this, I didn't want this to be or feel too much like an interview. I did want us to come on here and just flow. But we touched on being a TC in 2024. We touched on marketing. Do you have any last tips you want to add in terms of marketing or even
Yeah,
social media? Go ahead.
I think something that I've been kind of like trying to figure out for myself is like what is unique about me, right? And once you figure out what's unique about you, that's what you want to focus on,
Yes.
like marketing. Like that's what you want your highlight to be. So, you know, and this is going to be a weird example, but like I was telling you in the pre-call, there's a young lady on TikTok, like she has no teeth, but she's having twerk off challenge and the people are sending her coins and she's living her best life, right? She's making money off of it. So you have to find what's unique about you. And as long as you're not hurting or harming or inciting race riots or anything like that, dig into it, lean into it, and use that to help you stand out in the crowd.
I couldn't have said it any better. So whether you have teeth or not, just
Yes.
know who you are. Know who
Yes.
you are. Like truly, honestly, like all jokes aside, it really comes down to what skills do you have? What type of personality are you? What are you interested in? And then build a career, a business, a job around that. You may be working. I have a lot of people that are coming to me from the nursing field or the medical industry. And they're like, I'm ready to change my career. I'm like, well, please do not quit your job today.
Okay.
Please. Because the number one thing I'm so glad I did was take care of my finances and made sure that I had health insurance after.
Mhm.
So before we do that. So ultimately, when it comes down to it, it's like you really have to go inward before you could really make some drastic choices when it comes to your career. But at the same time, maybe you don't have to overthink it.
Right.
She knew her skill set. She knew that having no teeth was going to be a huge marketing point, a huge selling point, and she's using it. Some people that's an insecurity. To her, it's her prize.
Right.
You
And
know what
she's
I mean?
connecting with other people, like letting other people know, like, hey, I don't have to hide because I don't have
Yeah, right.
like I can still be out here living my best life, having a good time and
Exactly.
making coins. There's a community for everyone.
And that's the key word. You took the words right out of my mouth. It all comes down to community. Brand awareness, brand building, marketing. To me, just means how are you building a community? And not just within the social media platforms, but outside, whether it's an email, a phone number, or meetups, lives, uh, masterminds, whatever you want to call it. How are you building community outside of that? And then knowing your personality, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, finding even that type of community, but also challenging yourself a little bit to where if you are introverted, mix up a little bit with some extroverted people, because you can all learn from each other. You know what I mean? And build off of that. If you like writing, do a blog. If you like speaking, do a podcast. If you like visual, do vlogs. Whatever the case may be, there's so many options for us to market ourselves, put ourselves out there. But I think marketing was a topic I wanted to talk about because it's one of the number one questions I get outside of how to be a TC, but also it's like, how do you put yourself out there? How do you tell people about yourself without feeling sleazy, without feeling like you're annoying people? And honestly, once you get over those, what people think about you, uh, I'm posting too much or this feels sleazy, but also don't be sleazy. Like there's ways around that. But I think we internalize it as sleazy because being a salesperson is not easy. I didn't mean to drop a bar right there. But it's true because it's uncomfortable. It's in the beginning. It's uncomfortable to tell people to buy stuff from you, and I feel like once we kind of get over those humps, marketing is a key to all of our success. And but how you choose to do it is important. But I just wanted to come on here and, give you guys the keys from both of our perspectives on how we're doing it. But thank you for sharing that, Danielle. And then just to kind of wrap up the conversation, one of my favorite topics, and I think something that doesn't get talked about a lot in the real estate industry, is our mental health, is our self-care practices, and how we are maintaining all of this outside of just the technological aspects of things or the marketing aspect of things or the legal aspects of things. It's like, they make us take like risk management classes, but it's like the risk is also like, are we taking care of ourselves mentally, emotionally, physically? And for me, I've started taking my health a lot more seriously. I just turned 40 this year, so that was a pivotal, thank you. That was a big that was a big turning point in my life. I operate kind of in decades. So I like that starting over, freshness, that newness. And I was like, how do I want to go into my 40s, not just as a business, but as a person, as someone in this world? Like, how do I want to show up for myself? And then I was like, you know what? I think I've been putting others first too much. It's time for me to go back to me and, do things that I enjoy. And it started with just playing basketball. Then I started playing tennis this year for the first time. And that's a lot of fun because it allows me the space outside of work and outside of my office and my home office because I do everything from home. I'm not a realtor. So Danielle gets to leave her house occasionally and separate from family and friends and just be in her world. So I had to find some ways to get myself out of that home environment. And for me, it's through fitness. And I started playing tennis. I started taking step classes. I also considered going back to college, and that ended up not panning out. I think I registered too late, or I took too many classes when I was in college back in the day, so I couldn't. I don't know. I can't explain to you guys what exactly happened, but I tried.
Mhm.
So when it comes to that, also therapy, coaching, I'm the type I've learned that I have to journal every single day, if not at most majority of the week, 5 days a week, because that helps me. And that's not necessarily everyone's ways of dealing with their mental health or whatnot, or their tool, that's not necessarily in their toolkit. So that's kind of just some of the things that I've been doing to maintain my mental health and feel good about my job and work and career. And also, like you said in the beginning, getting back to your why, knowing, revising my why I want to do that. So those are just a few things, and I'll tap into that more as the season progresses on this podcast. But I'll turn it back to you, Danielle. Like, what have you been doing, or what do you do if you do anything? Because that's okay if you don't. I think we all are on different paths when it comes to healing or getting to know ourselves, being self-aware, or how we take care of ourselves. And it's a journey. I can't say I was the same way 5 years ago. This has been
Right.
a trial and error um, experience. And so, you know, whatever you're open, willing to share, or if anything, it's all good.
So as it comes to work, I haven't really I, okay, so I'm literally known as like, what did I, is it, it's not work addiction. They have some other word for it.
Workaholic.
Workaholic. Thank you. So my husband calls me a workaholic,
Mhm.
and it's not, I don't consider myself a workaholic. I just consider the fact that I know that I'm an entrepreneur and
Yeah,
that what I create or do or whatever is in order to be successful at it, it has to be done correctly, right? So, and I'm a planner. So I know, okay, if I'm going to show a house tomorrow, I'm going to have to leave the house. I'm going to have to deal with travel time. I have to do this. So I'm going to do everything that I can possibly do now. So that way, by the time tomorrow comes, whatever comes my way, I have the capacity to deal with it.
right.
So, um, I may be the worst person to kind of ask this question because I don't necessarily have anything that I do that's related to relieving me, from work stress. I take my computer with me on vacation. Like I'm not really, it doesn't really bother me. Like, I'll send this email and keep it moving. But right after that, I'll probably be drinking tequila too. Like my close clients know, I'd be like, look, I just took an edible. Like, what is, do you really need this right now? Like that's just my close clients know that, so but I've also implemented like a system where now after certain hours they get a text automation, so I think for me is more so I've put things in place that allow me time to myself or grant me time to myself. And so what I would say is that for me, I've had to do things that are more helpful for me when it comes to energy.
Mm,
I started doing Reiki, and that's because um I have been I'm a very much a okay, why is this? Why is this?
mhm,
Why did you feel you needed to say this? What did I do that made them feel like that? And so when I've learned that because I am that way, I deal with a lot of energy, right? So I'm drained or I'm tired or I feel like, okay, I've given my all to everybody and it's not just necessarily with people that are clients or that I work with. So I started doing Reiki, which is great, and it's kind of like energy healing. And it does have physical benefits of
mhm,
doing it. And so my first month was last month and it went well. So that's something that I do, but it wasn't really related to the stressors of work. And then my husband is on his self-discovery thing. So he has been ensuring that we're kind of like eating better,
mhm,
cooking more at home. So I think that's a huge thing. A lot of the elements and things that we face and the feeling sluggish or the energy blocks and all of that stuff comes from not eating well, so that would be something that I would definitely recommend people get into. But overall I think you just have to again start with how you want your business to run, And so once I realized like people were taking my kindness for weakness and texting me at 7 o'clock about something that can't even really be handled by anyone until tomorrow between 9 and 5, I said, okay, I got to figure out how to get the automated text responder. So now, I have that set up. So, you have to find your peace, I guess, in, the small ways that you can. But if you are a person who is feeling as though it's becoming too much,
mhm,
then you might want to look at subcontracting. Maybe you have someone, a TC that you subcontract to when you have like too much on your plate. Like, hey, okay, I've got this. Hey, Jessica, do you want to take this on? I'll give you 50% of whatever it is. And people may say, oh my God, give your money away. Yes, because
mhm.
you can't do it if you're burnt out. You won't be able to
Right.
continue to make money, so maybe subcontracting can help you if you feel like you're overwhelmed. You can go on vacation. Take a vacation, even if it's just you sitting at home. I think sometimes
Mhm.
people think vacation, you have to be on some kind of beach. No, you could be right in
Right.
your house, right? Like you could put on your vacation responder and be sitting at home in the same
100%.
office that is supposed to be your home office. So I think people just have to get around to understanding that you do have to take time for yourself if it's needed. And whether you get a little bit of piece of time every day, then do it. Meditation is also good. 15 minutes. I am a huge advocate of napping. I love a good nap. I will take a nap.
Right.
I love a good nap. So, if I get to a point where it's just been one of those days, I'm like, okay, I got to go lay down. Another thing is I am a pet person. So I do like play with my cat sometimes just to kind of like do something that's not, I don't want to deal with the kids. So I'll play with my cat and she plays with me. Sometimes she'll get mad and be like, girl, you ain't play with me today. Meow, meow, meow. So you have to find things that help give you peace, and so
Exactly.
I would say I don't really necessarily have a routine, but I do have go-to things that I do when, I'm feeling stressed or if I had a long day or I know I need to decompress. Walking is also really good.
Yes.
I'm a huge I love to take a walk. I'll go take a walk, walk to the store or just walk with my husband, and talk to him about the people that get on my nerves. And if you don't have a husband, you can talk to yourself. You can do that as long as you're not answering yourself, you should be fine. Um
Or
so
start a podcast and tell people, oh yeah, we're just
yeah,
interviewing. It's like, no,
yeah,
this is my mental health practice.
no,
This
exactly,
is
exactly.
self-care.
This is self-care, like because we need a space to kind of, get it all out. And that's something that's funny too, because sometimes, you know, your clients, you'll be like, yo, why are they just like being this way? And it make sure that you take time to call them every once in a while, even if it's, something where you could have sent an email, just kind of like use that as a shoe-in, because sometimes they want to feel like they have someone that they can share with. And if you allow them a little 15-minute vent session, it goes a long way. It builds rapport, etc. And it also helps you feel like, oh, okay, I'm not alone in this. Like, I'm not the only person feeling the pressure. And it kind of makes it easier for you to, deal with the high volume.
Mhm.
So those are my tips.
Thank you. And you were not the worst person to ask because you just gave some
I
major keys because everyone's journey of protecting their energy, protecting their health, their mind, body, soul, physically, emotionally, mentally, all that is different. You know what I mean? And it's again, we're all operating in at different paces, in different elements, no kids, kids, family, realtor, TC, unemployed, employed. So it's like, as long as we are building that toolkit that we could reference, like you said, because sometimes walking works for me, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes journaling works for me, sometimes it doesn't, and I'm realizing more and more that I do need to be more social. And I don't get annoyed when I am social, as long as, I mean, of course, as long as I'm around the right people, but I still need that. So I've been initiating more outings with friends or, with family and things like that, instead of just being in the house so much, because it is comfortable. And that is a part of my self-care is being alone. But I realize like, everything in moderation, but also, burnout is incremental. Burnout isn't something that, oh, I had a bad day, I'm burnt out. It's a culmination of multiple bad days that we've never dealt with or we didn't face, or much like to what you said about how we built our templates, right? It was because we realized like, oh, I made a mistake here, let me fix it. So it's kind of like catching those slip ups, whether they're minor or major in the moment, or at least within a decent time frame. And is it okay? We're going for walks every day at 12. That's
Right.
it. No ifs, ands, or buts until we feel better. We are gonna go on that staycation, that vacation. As much as I do love a beach, I can't afford to go to a beach. Even if I did have, uh, you know, disposable income, discretionary income that would afford me the beach lifestyle every day. Personally, I love to do work. I love to work. I've built systems, I've built a foundation for myself that work to me is self-care because I enjoy doing it. And this is part of my work, having a podcast, whether it makes me money or not, it's a part of the process to get me to something bigger than I don't even, I can't even fathom. So I'm just learning to be more faithful to the work and meeting my blessings halfway. But at the same time, it comes down to how am I taking care of myself outside of that, not touching my phone as soon as I wake up, unless I have to turn the alarm off or I get a phone call or text from family. There's like that knowing who's on that list or that priority list that before 9 a.m. or 10, whatever your hour is, I'm not touching the phone. I'm not going on social media. I have to have that boundary. I will journal before I leave my bedroom, after I use the bathroom and all that stuff. But before I touch an email, this is what I got to do.
Yeah.
Everyone's way of caring for themselves is different. And
I do
but
want to say one thing, because
go
you
ahead.
said,
Yeah, yeah.
so you mentioned like, okay, even if you're not making, you said, if I'm not making money from the podcast. And I think you have to have like blind faith, right? Because like I said,
Yes.
like, so I do social media, but the intention is not necessarily, I'm not expecting
Right.
leads if that's the, like TC clients, but you have to do it and understand that even though it may not directly lead up to direct sales, just the presence and the awareness is still can lead to it, right? Because it may just come in the money may come to you a different way, right?
Right.
So I wanted to touch on that is because that's something that I argue with my husband about a lot, is that he's like, oh, well, you're doing this, but it's not making you money. You can't see that it made me money, but some people have been referred to me based off of something they saw. They referred me to somebody else. They don't even use me as a TC, but they referred me to somebody else because they saw my post, right? So it may not come into a direct dollar amount, but it creates opportunity. And so I think that's something that we have to kind of like remind ourselves too when we're doing things. So that way we don't feel as though it's depleted. Now, this is not to say like spend all your time doing
Right.
something that generate money, but it's to say like still put an effort towards it and still do it because you don't know if it's having sometimes if it's having an impact. And this is why it's also important to ask people like, how did you find out about me or how did you hear
Yeah.
about me? So that way you can kind of figure out what's working and what is happening because people are watching even if you don't think they're watching. And
I
that's all.
No, thank you so much for kind of wrapping that up because blind faith is exactly I wrote it down. I was like, that's it. That's what it is. Because even with this podcast, and I have to stop saying, I have to catch myself too, because words mean things as well. You know what I mean? And I have to stop saying, even if it doesn't make me money, because you're right, it's beyond the dollar. It's more than the money. It's one, it's opportunities that it can create. It's the opportunity to meet new people. It's the opportunity to work on my communication skills, my public speaking, my level of comfort with the camera, how to use technology that I may be able to apply a year from today on something else, maybe the production of a Beyonce podcast one day. You know what I mean? Like
Beyonce, if you're listening,
Beyonce.
please. That's on her to-do list. That's like her fourth time talking about Beyonce. So she wants to interview you.
If I'm
Okay.
gonna go big, I'm gonna go big. Like
She'll even follow you down a hallway.
I'll
Whatever.
follow you down a hallway with a
Real stuff.
mic, a mini mic, a real mic, whatever the case. But it's like you still have to be audacious and a little bit delusional with your goals, you know what I mean? And you know, so yes, 100% blind faith because it's not the podcast that may make me money or create the opportunities or lead me to the people that I need to meet. It um because it could be like, oh, this is how I met my personal trainer, and then
Yes.
I ended up being a lifting competitor at the Olympics in 2028
Yes.
at 44. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Something wild and bananas. Something crazy.
wild and bananas. And then that gave me the opportunity to be on Dancing with the Stars. And because I took those step classes, I was more coordinated. And now I'm playing tennis with Serena Williams. Like I know that was a really wild, who knows? It may not be wild, but I think that's what we're getting at is like the thing is going to manifest and unfold into multiple things later. But you just have to be diligent and faithful to the work.
Yes.
And
Yes.
really like my motto all year, my word of the year has been trust. And it's been, you know, whether you're faith-based, spiritual, religious, whatever the case, I believe in God. That's it. I don't claim a religion or anything, but it's like trust God, trust myself, trust the process. And more recently, I added trust the abundance.
I love that.
And ever since you know, when I get into a funk, I'm like, talk to me, God. And I just repeat that over and over. And I'm like, okay, what do I have to do? And I think
Here
that's it.
we are on the keys.
And here we are on the keys. And that's what brought us here on the keys. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know Danielle, what, a year ago,
Right.
almost a year and a half ago. And we've created so much content. We've had so many amazing conversations. She has coached me off of the quote unquote business ledge multiple times, whether she realizes it or not. So I felt like she was the perfect person to have on the first-ish new show, The Keys.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you. Thank you.
and stay tuned. You know, more to come from Danielle. Follow her. I'll let her you know, before I close out the show, I'll let her again share all of her socials, her websites, and things she has coming up. And go check out our more in-depth interview about getting to know her on it's episode number 28 of the Transaction Care podcast. The old name, but you know, I'm still going to market it a little bit because that's still the brand, Transaction Care. Go check that out. And yeah, go ahead. Whatever you want to promote, Danielle, the floor is yours, and then we'll close out the show.
I'm Danielle Butler, the best TC ever on Instagram, thebesttcever.com. Check out the digital products and stay tuned for the course because it's going to be epic. I'm excited about it. And at the end of the day, just be you. That's all.
I love it. Thank you so much, Danielle, for being on the show. I appreciate you. And to give me a follow at Transaction Care on everything, transactioncare.com. Also, I have a Patreon. So that is where I host my amazing community members. We're small but mighty right now. We're still growing and we're only about a month old. So we are very new to the world right now as a community. I also offer one-on-one coaching. So if you're interested in that, just visit my website, transactioncare.com. Everything will live under there, the podcast, coaching, Patreon, and whatever else I have coming up. But there will be more Danielle to come. Stay tuned for that. And thank you guys for tuning into The Keys. I like how that sounds. Thank you guys for tuning into The Keys. This this is the beginning of something new. So we'll see where this takes us. Blind faith, right, Danielle?
Yes, not faith. I have a good one.
All right, have a good one.